the road teams are doing really good in the playoffs, and a lot of people are kind of wondering what's going on with teams at home and why they're not winning. And something that I've thought about for a while now is that there's really not much of a difference, in my opinion, between home and road in the modern NBA. I think with the way that a lot of arenas are built, with the travel, with ticket prices also being higher in a lot of places, I think the environments are not as hostile as they might have been in decades prior. And I think that a lot of teams understand that now. And I think that when they go into these games, there's not as much of a fear or anxiety when it comes to the environment that they're in. In fact, some of these teams I think even feel more anxiety at home because I think that there's more pressure to perform in front of the home fans and perform in an environment where you're supposed to be comfortable. I think there's actually much more of a fear of playing at home than there is on the road. I think teams and players play freer and looser on the road, and especially also considering that a lot of teams that are on the road to begin series, every team that's on the road is a lower seed. So in theory, they're not expected to win on the road. So I think it takes a lot of pressure off of them. And in addition to that, if you look at the playoff format, one of the things that I've always said about the regular season is how teams, while they want home court advantage, I don't necessarily think that they're going crazy about one game on the road in a game seven. I understand that the thing that they'll say publicly is, hey, this is why we work so hard to, earn game seven and play it at home. But in reality, I think a lot of teams during the regular season just want to get through the season. So they're not as concerned about what's going to happen when they get into a playoff series and they get to a game seven because, like anything, they just want to get to the game seven. They'll take their chances once they get there. And I think that's kind of the mindset of a lot of teams. So I don't really think that they think a lot about road games that way. And so, and yeah, in the modern NBA, like if you look at the way everything is done now, a lot of things are uniform. Arenas are pretty similar, travel's similar, accommodations are similar. It's not really like the old days where teams used to travel commercial to get from city to city. It wasn't like travel was really rough or they had to, take alternative methods of travel, trains, buses, whatever. Everything is pretty simple and set up for teams. And also, a lot of their a lot of arenas that they play in are multi-purpose venues because they play ice hockey there, or they have concerts or things like that. So a lot of the arenas are going through the same thing that other arenas are. There are very few basketball only venues, and even the ones, for example, the Intuit Dome in LA where the Clippers play, even those that are built for it, they have other events like concerts and whatnot. So there's really not that scary environment. Even though I applaud the Clippers for really trying to bring that with the wall that they have there. I think that's a cool idea, and I wish that teams would adopt that in the future. But it got me thinking. All that got me thinking about how you can remedy the problem of playing on the road. And one of the things that I was thinking about basically was how I think that if the league were really to give a home court advantage to teams for being better during the regular season, that home court advantage wouldn't necessarily be like a number of games so much as making teams really play for home court advantage through the playoffs. So what I mean by that is basically you have to change what you're playing for within a series. Like obviously teams are trying to win the series, but you should have kind of mini important games within a series, not just in terms of the number of wins and losses, but in terms of what you're playing for. And I think home court is something that you could play for. So I think so. One of the things that I came up with was a new format for the playoffs, and simple. It would still keep 1 through 8, all that. Wouldn't be that much of a change. But the one thing that I would do is in the first round of the playoffs, the lower seeds would have to win a certain amount of games to get home court advantage. And then they would have home court advantage until they lose a game. So what I mean by that is that if you're the 8th seed, you wouldn't be able to get any home games because you'd have to outright win the series on the road. Which means if you were the 8th seed, essentially you'd have to play a 7-game series, essentially be on the road for at least 14 days because you'd play every other day. You would have to be on the road for 14 days to win a series because you would have to win all 4 games on the road. If you were the 7th seed, you would have to win 3 games. If you win 3 games on the road, then you can earn 1 home game to potentially end the series. However, if you lose that home game, you'd have to go right back to the opposing team's arena. If you were the 6th seed, you would have to win 2 games to get a home game in the series. If you were the 5th seed, you'd have to win 1 game to get a home game. And then obviously if those teams were to do that and they were to lose their home game, then they'd have to go back to the other team's arena for the rest of the series. So I think something like that could be good. That would be the first round. The second round, the higher seed would actually get 5 games in the series. And the format would essentially be a 2-1-1-1-2. So you'd play 2 games at home, go on the road, come home for 1, go back on the road, and then come back for 2 at the end of the series. Because here the 2, you've won a playoff round, so you should get automatic home games. However, I think the higher seed should get more games. So you'd get 5 games. In the conference finals, it would be 4-3. However, the first 3 games would go to the higher seed, and then you'd also get game 7. So essentially, the lower seed would have to play the first 3 games on the road in the conference finals to get to their home games. Then in the last series, you would have the normal 2-2-1-1-1 format for the finals because both teams are there. So that's just something that I was thinking about because I feel like the aspect of playing on the road, it's not so much going to play on the road for 1 or 2 games. It's more the idea of taking a road trip and having to be away from home for a long time. That's really what wears on you, not really just going once. It would have to be that. So if teams actually had to play for something, and for a lot of the people that sit there and say, oh, well, teams count on the playoff revenue, everything like that. Well, in theory, if you only have a certain amount of teams making the playoffs, that means some teams aren't going to get playoff revenue as is. So why in the playoffs is it that teams that finish lower should get this access to a similar amount of playoff revenue based on having home games? That doesn't make any sense. You finished lower than the other teams in the standings, so I don't really understand why you should get something. So I think in the future I'll probably do a video about this, detailing it better. But that's just my theory, is that if you had a format like that where in the first round you had to compete for your home games and then going forward, the team with the higher seed always had a significant advantage over somebody else, over the other team, I think that maybe the home road splits would change and home court would truly be a thing that teams would want, because it really would be a deciding factor in a lot of these playoff series.